I don't know. This is kind of an end of an era, right, John?
Asked these questions 2 years ago.
GT9 confirmed. Hello and welcome back to the Traxion Control Sim Racing and Racing Game podcast. I'm Tom, joined this week by John. You okay?
Okay, I don't know. There's been a lot happening this week, Tom, which the viewers will not know about yet.
Well, they will do. They will do in a second because we'll touch upon John's dramas. Before we do that, we're also going to be talking this week about Le Mans Ultimate's USA Track Pass with community feedback on that, both positive and negative. The feeling is mixed, safe to say, but then, hey, that's the internet. We're also going to touch upon the end of physical game media. Again, some correspondence on that. We're going to briefly touch upon the latest Automobilista 2 updates and some RaceRoom news. We've got the Gran Turismo survey feedback in Full Set Dead End, and we're going to answer some of your community questions and reading out some of the best and worst comments that we've seen on our YouTube channels and websites and social media, which is always a fun time to delve into those. Right, so we're going to touch upon Le Mans Ultimate Track Pass first of all, but before we do, John's PC broke.
Oh, I thought you were going to team me up with what was the drama, and I could have said that England beat Mexico, but we've missed the chance, so I'll not mention it.
Bad segue from my point.
As you say, yeah, more important, my PC broke. I have no idea what happened. Midway through last week, actually first half of last week, it shut down, and I was like, okay, this happens sometimes, and then it continued to refuse to start up again. So long story short, Traxion production has been a little bit tested this week because our main video editor, our fantastic Osley Beatty, is also having a well-deserved holiday before I then go on holiday. So I'm on full production duties, mostly at least, and obviously a PC crashing is not what you need on that sort of week. So let's just say it's been a testing time, Tom.
And a new device has been ordered, but it has been delayed. And, we need to get this podcast edited and then this Thursday's YouTube video edited. So, all being well, you're actually listening to this, which means we've found something.
That's a good point, actually, yes. And if any sponsors of PC build specialists would like to sponsor the podcast and sponsor a new build, that would be lovely.
Hey, info@traxion.gg, that's the email address. Right. So, Le Mans Ultimate. Right, so they have announced, after much teasing and speculation, and I think basically the track list seems to be public because well-known content creators have just shared it about as some sort of theory, but I wouldn't say they're wrong. So, anyway, Laguna Seca and Daytona have been announced, and there'll be 6 tracks in total. So they're the first 2, then there's going to be another wave of 2, then another wave of 2, 6 total. And we don't know when they're releasing. We don't know when release date of the first 2 are. We don't know the price. But this is called the US Track Pass. And I think, for the most part, Le Mans Ultimate needs more content. It needs more tracks. So I'm really happy. And also, US circuits excuse the WEC license for the time being, by the looks of things. What's your initial thoughts, John?
First of all, it's good to see new tracks that are not specifically, or at least on the surface of things, aren't specifically tied to a series at this point. So it's not coming as part of like an ELMS update or
that's a big point.
A Le Mans update. Sorry.
Yeah, doesn't it not mean, to interrupt as well, that this proves that they don't have to be stuck to the WEC license?
Well, exactly. This is the thing. They're by having an American track pack, that's the title we know of. They've not said this is an IMSA DLC. This is American track pack. So we can take from that, okay, first of all, if that means there's no IMSA content, that's a shame, of course. We'd love to see new cars and liveries and everything like that. But at the same time, it just means, we've got scope to bring in tracks that aren't tied to a series that is also tied to the game, if that's the case. So on one hand, I think that's pretty good. And obviously, new tracks to Le Mans Ultimate is exactly what Le Mans Ultimate needs. However, it needs other things as well. And I feel like this update has been coming for months now. Like the announcement of this update, there's been a build up towards what are they doing? We're being quiet at Le Mans, but we're working on something. We're teasing the Daytona chicane during the previous Stephen Hood video. Like it feels like there's been all this kind of furore around this update. And when it's announced, it's like, okay, cool. We've got some tracks. Okay, but what about the other stuff? Like this is great. We need this, but not just this, please.
Yes, this is key. So I think this was released. The announcement was on the 4th of July, American Independence Day. America's also celebrating 250 years of existence this year. And this feeds into that, a good marketing opportunity. I agree. I would have done something the same. Now we wait, and what we hope is that when they confirm the further details on this, and like the release date and the pricing, that there is the usual Stephen Hood style video, right, where he's in the studio with some puns, some teasers, and he explains more about career mode, if they'll do ever like full course cautions, if they'll do the console versions, what's the update on those, if they'll talk about any general bug fixes, stability improvements, the being able to do a driver swap on a hosted event, another 24-hour race, all these things. So these are all really important, but this is one element of that, and this is a positive step, I think. You mentioned there, it does look like no IMSA license, which again, quite interesting. And from the teaser shots in the trailer, it looks like, I would guess, and we don't know, that maybe they would use some R-Factor 2 assets here, but they've gone through and at least like updated the curbing. In particular, the Laguna Seca, the runoff areas seem to be quite up to date, which I was impressed by. Well, I wasn't necessarily expecting that if they were going to do US tracks. They have made some changes there. And yeah, I think this is cool, but we also need to mention that the base game has, I think, 7 tracks. We have track guides for each on the main Traxion YouTube channel, brought to you by Thrustmaster. But 13 now, once these are finished, are paid DLC. So you've got more than nearly double the circuits are paid for as opposed to the base game.
Challenging, isn't it? Because that just means that your ratio of online daily races that are going to be you're going to be ineligible for is just going to err towards being ineligible as opposed to being eligible if you only own the base game content. Of course, that's what Le Mans Ultimate Motorsport games want. They want you to buy the DLC to be able to enjoy it. And I think the game is at a stage and has been going long enough where they can justify that. They can justify wanting players who have only had the base game to now want to spend a bit more money to keep up to date. I think that's valid, and that's how the world works, right? But it does mean that if you're buying the base game, you're going to struggle. And I think Le Mans Ultimate, there's something in this about sentiment, right? I think Le Mans Ultimate and Motorsport games have been building positive sentiment for quite a long time now, and it's been getting better and better. Let's talk about, it was a disaster a few years ago. It's been recovered thanks to the progress on this game and the good communication, the good work from the small team, the good physics, and the base game continuing to get better. It's still far from the kind of finished perfect article for sure. But there needs to be some caution here, I think, because yes, there are still plenty of things missing. The announcements have been, this year at least, have been a little bit slower. And there are still various events and murmurs happening in the community about other things. There's bugs that haven't been sorted yet, or there's people having issues and they're not feeling like they're getting listened to or response. So there's got to be a level of caution here. You're talking about the IMSA license, for example. We haven't heard anything about IMSA. So it sounds like unless something changes, this isn't going to be an IMSA update. And we've seen IMSA in so many other titles. AMS2 has an IMSA license. iRacing has an IMSA license. IMSA seems to be handing out their licenses left, right, and center. Exactly. So that tells me that it's quite a gettable license. So it's interesting that we haven't seen any evidence of that yet. And that's another thing that could just, add to the kind of boiling pot, let's say, that Le Mans Ultimate's in. And we've been very positive about it over the last few years. And I think it's justified. But it's not like it's climbed to the top of the mountain and it's all plain sailing downhill from here. Like, there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, this is really key. But listen, the player numbers and the sales are really strong. The company's profitable. The general sentiment is really good, and we are very positive about this game as well. But you raised some interesting points there, and I think that spells like a main YouTube channel video, doesn't it, John? So keep your eyes peeled for that. I think we might put together some stuff there.
There's one more thing as well I want to touch on, and it's been a kind of big news in the very small hardcore sim racing space recently. There was an incident involving Le Mans Ultimate in a recent Logitech challenge. It's been covered on YouTube. You can go and check out the videos that exist about the incident, showing it and things like that. I'm not going to add more fuel to the fire of the discussion, but what I would say, it involves people bending rules and potentially cheating a system. Don't cheat. Guys, if you're playing Le Mans Ultimate and you're taking part in any game and you're taking part in an official competition, don't try and do things that are clearly unfair and giving you a massive advantage, regardless of whether there's a grey area written into the rules or not. Just don't be a cheater. Don't do it. It's not good. It doesn't help anyone. That's all I'll say on the subject.
No, well said. Couldn't agree more. Don't be a swear word. Right.
Yeah. I couldn't think of one, so I just had to go with blank.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going up to that, and I thought, oh, hang on a minute.
Does Manus count? I'm not from Australia. I don't know.
Oh, well, let's move on. So, on the news article, if you want to know more about what we know so far about the Le Mans Ultimate US Track Pass, to give its official name, we have an article on the Traxion website, traxion.gg. It's updated every single day with at least 1 or 2 articles, latest news about esports competitions, sim racing, racing games, opinions, hardware reviews. Ross recently did a review of the Sim Magic Zeus steering wheel ecosystem, which is really complex to set up, but once it was working, he thought, oh, actually, it's quite good and the value is not bad. So go read that. We'll put a link in the show notes for this particular podcast. But we also put a poll at the bottom of the article for Le Mans Ultimate News. And we asked, roughly, what would people be willing to pay for 6 American tracks? And no surprise, when you ask about price, people are always going to vote for the cheapest. So the 25% of the vote winning was under $20. However, the most popular sort of price range above that was just $20 itself. And then below that, with 21%, was somewhere like £20 or $27. So that region, somewhere between 15 and 25 bucks, seems to be what most people would like to pay. And consequently, we had over 150 respondents at the time of recording this, and it's going up by the minute, but only 6 people were willing to pay about $40 or over £30 for that.
Just on that as well, it's $15 per track or for a premium track on iRacing, so you'd be spending over £30 for 3 tracks on iRacing. That's just a comparison that I probably didn't need to make. Sorry, iRacing, but I'm gonna make it anyway.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, this is the thing. So it's adding up for LMU, but then also when you have to go to factor in maybe one of its closer competitors, it's still cheaper than that in various instances. Let's not get bogged down in that. Right, so let's go through some correspondence about the Le Mans Ultimate US Track Pass announcement, both price but also general sentiment. We've got comments here from the website. So again, traxion.gg is the website. You can leave comments on articles there. We've got comments from the Discord. That is traxion.gg/Discord if you want to join, have a debate in there. There's also a dedicated podcast channel to ask us questions. And then also we've got comments from the main YouTube channel. We did a community post on this particular topic. So Paul Glover says, I'm in no matter what the cost. I'm here to support them in terms of the developers. Nice one, Paul. Counterpoint to that, also from the Discord, if they go past €20, they deserve a flop. That's from Dredshi. Not sure if I pronounced that right. I probably didn't, but apologies. Thanks for the comment. Jez on the website said, $60 for a game that only has 7 tracks in the base version and wants a subscription on top of that. No thanks. Zero interest in LMU. I'd rather play Project Motor Racing and support them. Quick thoughts on this one, John?
Valid opinion. If you don't think it's worth the money, that's fine. You don't have to play it. So I can't argue with it. It's a personal opinion and fair enough. I disagree. I think, by the way, I would rather play Le Mans Ultimate, but there you go.
Well, same. I think Le Mans Ultimate is a far superior product than Project Motor Racing. In terms of price per car, though, Project Motor Racing and Track knocks it into a cocked hat. All right. Micro Team 4. I'm glad, but also the game is getting stupid expensive to get all the content. This goes back to something what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Then R26VH1 says, same old tracks again and again. Paying to race in Laguna Seca, which has been a staple track in almost every game for 25 years. And then a celebration emoji, which I'm assuming is ironic.
Yeah, there's just two quick things on that, Tom. One, obviously, I get that sentiment completely, but the motorsport games still have to make money from Le Mans Ultimate to continue to develop it, and tracks cost, both to actually develop the track or update the track. You need staff to do that. You need maybe new scans and, of course, licensing fees as well. So, unfortunately, that's just a necessary evil.
I agree. Yeah, good point. Licensing costs, as we touched upon last week, are astronomical in some instances for tracks. I'm not talking about Laguna Seca in particular. I don't know the details of that deal, but they're getting out of hand. Paul 51 S4, more content can't hurt the game. Starving for more content. Correct. Yeah, fully agree with that. And then Natural Born Dilla, YouTube usernames, fantastic. More tracks is good. Although to be honest, or to be fair, I'd rather have the Asian Le Mans Series tracks for 25-26 first. Sepang in a hypercar would be biblical.
Yes. Yeah. Sounds good.
It is interesting. A long time ago, we did a poll on the website. What do you expect from the Le Mans Ultimate's next DLC? We did put American tracks as one of the options because Stephen Hood, the CEO of Motorsport Games, said non-European. But Asian Le Mans Series actually won that poll. And it's... yes, they've not gone with that.
Interesting, though. But Asian Le Mans Series is intriguing going forward because Asian Le Mans Series is about to get more exciting because Asian Le Mans Series is about to add hypercars and there's going to be some reused older hypercars, lots of new liveries. So you could argue that that's still something that would be amazing, and maybe it's actually better to wait until that era of Asian Le Mans Series is underway properly. That's what I would say on that one.
Maybe but the game's already got those cars in the game, right? So it's not new content for them. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Right, so just a couple more to wrap up. Lukewarm 73, I couldn't be happier. Fantastic. Azray 6460. I love that they've been added to the game. I just hope 1 or 2 tracks are free so they can be added to the bronze daily rotation for more variety. Key point, and you mentioned it earlier, John, that this potentially with all the tracks, or a lot of the tracks being paid
splitting the user base here for the earlier multiplayer races.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of free tracks would be great, even if it's in addition to this American stuff. There needs to be more free stuff coming in, which, to be fair, Le Mans Ultimate has done with the likes of the Odesse, the likes of the Genesis. So there is free content coming, but tracks-wise, it would be nice to have a few.
Yeah, the Odesse there was the LMP3 car that came after the European Le Mans Series paid DLC with the LMP3s as a free bonus to help increase the multiplayer ranking. So maybe we could I would like it, actually, based on this comment here. Great point, Azri, that maybe after the season pass, they could add a couple more base game tracks as well. That would be wonderful for everybody. And then you could maybe bundle that up. It helps with the console version, etc., etc.
Which comes back to the comment about Laguna Seca earlier. So actually, maybe we're unfair to kind of shut that down quite quickly, because we do also want to see the odd free track, but it just depends on which one, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Next topic on this week's podcast is, well, it's a sad one. It's the end of physical media. Now, for most PC-only sim racers who are, let's say, Le Mans Ultimate fans, iRacer subscribers, I don't think this is a big thing for you. You might be quite ambivalent to it. I think for everyone else, this might be much more of a big topic. But essentially, the most popular console manufacturer in the world right now for let's say, children-focused games is Sony. They make the PlayStation 5 and the 4, and there'll be a PlayStation 6, no doubt. They announced that January 2028 is when they will end production of physical PlayStation 5 games. Now, and there's no doubt this is probably based on sales numbers declining of physical media. Also, although in the US recently there was a small, brief uptick on that front. And also, they've got the numbers that we don't have. I also think it's potentially a benefit to them to not have to do this anymore. There's maybe greater margin on digital games for them, potentially. And there's another factor of that Grand Theft Auto 6 will be getting a physical release that's just a code inside a box. And there's another factor which tied into that about Blu-ray production, but I'll come to that later. But essentially, no more PlayStation physical games. Xbox has not said anything, but I wouldn't be surprised. Switch, Nintendo, if they follow suit, Nintendo does make physical Switch 2 games. A lot of those are codes in the box, though. There's also a stink in that community about that. So, I don't know. This is kind of an end of an era, right, John?
Yeah, it's a seismic shift. This is a very wide topic, and it's much more like
it is
gaming, general gaming related things. But when you talk about the 50-year generations of games, and obviously video games is still in its first major generation, I would say this is potentially the real stick in the ground moment for Gen 2 of video games, right? It's huge. And okay, yes, being sensible and being totally pragmatic about it and taking emotion out of things, I'm sure there's a good reason to move to digital, and people can still play the games and all this, but there are still, of course, benefits to physical media. And a lot of people love these things as a collector's item. It's not just about the game. It's about the experience of buying the game, taking the game home. It's about the collection you've got building up, like same as model cars or CDs or records, right? It's a lot of people would rather have a big CD collection than just a bunch of playlists on a software that could disappear at any moment if the software dies or goes down, right? It's sad. It really is sad. And despite the fact that I'm sure I can understand it from if I was to sit down and have a conversation with Sony's CEO, I'm sure I would come out of that going, yeah, that makes sense. I still feel sorry for especially those gamers who love collecting these things.
Personally, I am okay with buying everything on PC with digitally and it all be on Steam, right?
Yeah.
And I trust Steam and Valve that it'll be around for a long time, and maybe that's a wrong thing to do. But then at the same time, on console, I do like to buy a physical game because the option is there still, and I know it's very old-fashioned. But then, recently I needed to sell a few things in my life, and I had some games that had a residual value, and I was able to get some money back, right? Yeah. I sold some on eBay, and I took some to a computer exchange, and I got some money back. I know I'm in the minority there. The other thing as well, being on the Xbox side, and then PlayStation copied it as well with a tier of PlayStation Plus, is Game Pass. I'm going to subscribe. I don't own anything. It's amazing. I remember a few years ago, I put a comment somewhere on the internet. Big mistake to do that. And I said, I quite like buy physical because there's a residual value. And I got absolutely beaten down by Game Pass subscribers. This is ridiculous. You're wasting all your money. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Game Pass is the future. It's been proven, though, years later, that while Game Pass is very popular and good value for money in some respects, it isn't the future. And growth has flatlined for that subscription service. It's another thing to bear in mind. So there's that all going on. There's a lot to think about here.
There really is. And I at one point had a bit of a kind of euphoria moment of, oh, this is a problem for about 5 seconds when I thought, what about that secondhand market of people buying these games because they don't have the income to justify buying new games. They've got to buy games when they're heavily discounted, and you can go into a game shop and buy a 5-year-old game that you're still going to get a lot of enjoyment out of for a couple of quid. I thought that's going to die. And I went, oh no, it won't, because you've got things like Humble Bundle and all of these sites, CD keys, and there are ways of getting hold of games cheaply on digital as well, not just physical. But then you're so right about the resale thing. You can't then sell on a digital copy. So I think that's a really valid point. And yes, of course, we can have confidence in Steam and all these places that they will exist. But why should we? Like, what evidence is there that this will be around tomorrow? What if there's a massive issue with the servers? What if everything... there's absolutely no guarantee that even though you've got all these games in the archive sitting there on Steam and you think they're going to be around forever, there's no guarantee of that, which is a difficult thing to comprehend, even though you're really not going to change your behavior because of that possibility. Yeah. But that's the problem for people. It's that 1% part of your brain that goes, I want to own the thing I own.
I could go so many ways here, and I'll try and be concise. It's such a complex issue. One reason we're covering it so in depth here is because it intrinsically affects racing games perhaps more than many other games, I think. Because what we've mentioned to last episode and earlier in this episode, licensing for tracks and vehicles. Often those, and not in every scenario, can be on a timed basis. Content gets removed. So we've seen tracks and cars disappear from R-Factor 2. We've seen recently Ferraris disappear from RaceRoom, right? Now, I think in those instances, if you own it, you might be able to re-download it. I'm not sure about the R-Factor one. But a bigger example is you cannot buy any of the old Forza games other than Forza Horizon 5 and Forza Horizon 6. And even then, I think they're on borrowed time, right? Eventually, they will be delisted because if you've got 700 cars in your game, the licensing fee on that is extortionate. So it might be on a short-term timed period for some of those manufacturers. And when that ends, they're gone. Old Formula 1 games, you cannot buy anything before Formula 1 24, I think, anymore, irrespective if it's on Steam or not. So with cars and tracks, licensing can expire, doesn't always. Sometimes it's a lifetime deal. And therefore, you might be able to then still download them from your library, but new people cannot buy them. And then what's to say if those stores stop hosting? Someone's paying for those games to be on a server somewhere for you to download, right?
Yeah.
So they could, at some point, be deleted forever.
And it's such a good point. We see franchises disappear all the time, like Project Cars is another one. You can't buy. Whereas if there's a
Rally,
nip down to your local game store, you can probably pick up a cheap copy of Project Cars if there are one, or maybe the values go up because they're now difficult or impossible to actually source. But
at the minute, the values are not going up on those because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
You're right, but in the future maybe. So you're right. It's like £2.
Yeah. So then, from a digital perspective, the only way potentially of playing some of these older games that you don't own is through illegal practices or through, this whole gray area side of the internet where you can get archive stuff. And obviously, depending on whether the company still exists and all this kind of stuff, whether or not it's okay to play Richard Burns Rally, for example. But maybe that's what the game developers actually want to happen. Like maybe they want their game to be preserved through these means that they can't control, because at the end of the day, that's one form of preservation. It's like there's just so many different ways of looking at this.
Yeah, and there's also one good comment I saw on Traxion somewhere, but it might be in social media, and I haven't been able to find it this morning to touch upon it. But their general sentiment was, well, can't we have more racing games on GOG, which is a PC distribution service website? You can buy games from it, right? It's owned by CG Projekt Red, actually, who did The Witcher and Cyberpunk. You can go on that website, you can buy games, but the key difference is they are DRM free. No digital rights management, unlike Steam. So you download the file and then you can save that file on your computer, copy it to another computer. I noticed Giant Software also do a similar thing. You can actually buy a game direct from their website on PC if you want, for Farming Sim and Project Motor Racing, as it happens. And so as long as someone in the world has got that file, then in the future they could share that around. And I think that's a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
Again, though, there are fewer racing games that do this, I think, because it can relate to licensing terms. And that's why you might not have so many games on GOG, for example. It's just unfortunate with car manufacturers and tracks. We want the real stuff, don't we? I want the real stuff. Licensing is tricky. There's two other things I'd like to mention. Sony announced the end of physical media on the day. They also said that the PS3 and PS Vita stores will disappear at some point soon over the next year, depending on which region you're in. And there are some racing games that will then, therefore, be permanently never. I mean, initially they said the store's going to go away, but there will still be a way of downloading games, but we don't know how that will be. And they phrased it as an interim solution, so not permanent. So there are some download-only PS3 exclusive racing games, such as Gran Turismo HD Concept, Calling All Cars. There was a GTI Club Plus Monaco, GTI Club arcade game port. They're on my PlayStation hard drive, but how long will that last? We'll never, it won't. At some point, it will die.
Yeah.
So those games are going to disappear forever. And the other thing is Cruising Blast, which is another arcade cabinet port to Switch. It's a really good, stupid, fun arcade game. Listen, if you're only into iRacing, I know you're not interested in it, but this is really important. This is a fantastic game that came out a few years ago. We actually give it a really good review on our website. I actually own this, but by pure chance. That has been delisted from the Switch store, the eShop, without warning, without precedent. Nobody knows why. It's gone forever. You can only get it now if you have the physical version. And even then, there were two forms of physical version. One is on a cartridge. One was just a box with a code. So just all happened in the same week. Anyway, John, our NASCAR 26 prediction has aged well.
I hate the no warning thing, by the way. I hate it when it's just like there's no opportunity to consolidate that and purchase it before it goes, because I think that you're missing out on something. But yes, NASCAR 26, we literally said in the last, I think, 2 podcasts in a row. I think I started off 2 weeks ago saying, NASCAR 26 needs to be physical because people still want to buy this as a Christmas present. And then you said pretty much the same thing
I agreed.
A week later. And then here we are. Thank you, Sony, for once again rendering our opinions worthless and redundant, like video games that get taken off the shelf. Our opinions have been delisted, Tom.
Yeah, our opinions have been delisted. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to go on here. I know, again, just to be clear, that if you're an ardent PC-only sim racer, this might not matter so much, but it is a really important thing for the preservation of our scene of games for the future. A couple of comments on this. None of them are positive when we posted about this on the internet. So RoboJohn 2084, Sony stopped production. Fine, I'll stop buying their consoles. To be honest, the issue for me isn't so much physical, it's ownership of what you buy, in inverted commas.
Exactly.
I 100% prefer physical, but I must own what I buy for as long as I see fit. Yeah, because for a long, long time, and this has been a debate in music when iTunes became a preeminent music purchasing store, and Amazon started doing Kindle. I think there was one instance where Amazon came in the night and removed a certain book from everyone's Kindle, right? For example, because when you buy something digital, you're only purchasing access. Yes. You're not owning it.
A license to use it or listen to it. Not even Correct. That. Mainly just a license to be able to consume it yourself personally.
Just to access it.
But it was very specific, and it comes back to what we were saying earlier. Who's to say tomorrow Steam won't be deleted entirely and suddenly none of us have physical versions of those Steam games that we own?
Yep. Rob says, after buying all the special editions of Gran Turismo over the years, I will feel sad about not being able to buy GT8 physically. Yeah, it's a key thing because we're talking about sim racing and stuff, but actually, depending if you call it a sim or whatever, let's not get into that. The most purchased and played circuit-based serious racing game is Gran Turismo 7. We believe it's over 12 million copies sold. You can get that physically. You won't be able to get GT8 physically because part of the announcement says we'll stop making PlayStation games physically. It doesn't even mention PS5 specifically, so presumably they've confirmed there that PS6 is digital only.
Yeah, but also it's 2028. So if Gran Turismo 8 comes along next year.
Ah, okay.
There's still hope, Rob.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
GT9, no. I can't see I can't see Polyphony Digital in 2026 turning around a game in less than a year. Funnily enough, I don't think it's going to happen. But, unlikely, but you never know with GT8. Maybe it's the last.
Well, we've got something more about GT8 potentially later in the podcast. But we shall move on now to some rapid-fire news. Automobilista 2 dropped an update. When? I don't know. It was Saturday at 4:27 or something weird. You never know what's going to come up. You do know what's going to come up. It's going to be in the forum. It's going to have this car. It's not going to have that car. Who knows? Ross covered it in an excellent podcast in the last few weeks ago about the sort of the maelstrom that surrounds this game. Wonderful game. Everyone loves it. Amazing content. But anyway, it's released. There was some DLC, the Historic Endurance. Oh, I don't even know the name. This is so bad now. The Historical Endurance Pack Part 2.
Yes, well done. And
Lister
really
Storm,
cool
Celine. Exactly. Panars, Spiker, TVR, Gillet, Vertigo, Maserati, Grand Sport, Trofeo. Stuff that dreams are made of, right, John?
Yeah, stuff that dreams are made of. But you were at the Pet Shop Boys, and I was at My Chemical Romance when this dropped. So it was unfortunate timing. Speaking of nostalgia, but yeah, really, really cool cars, and I'm hearing a lot of good things about the sounds. The sites I've not actually had a chance yet to, well, at the point of recording, to play. Funnily enough, because my PC exploded. But yeah, it all sounds good, and well done, not RaceRoom, Automobilista 2 for dropping more cool cars. But also it kind of came out of nowhere, which is a little bit frustrating. But there we are.
No, it's all good. I just wish sometimes they would have a little pause and be like, "No, well, we'll release it on. We'll tell everyone when it's going to release before we release it.
Build some excitement." Also,
I suppose so. It's another way of doing it. And of note on licensing, there is not a Ferrari. It's a Milano 55 GT. But if you think it looks like a Ferrari 550, then you can think that if you want. Okay. Other news that came out, RaceRoom did say that we're aiming for June to release their DTM 2026 season pack, which would not only include liveries, but also 4 new GT3 cars for them. The updated Porsche 911, Aston Martin Vantage, which is the first time Aston Martin in the game, Lamborghini Temerario, and the Ford Mustang. That's not happened in June, but we now know that it's coming out in August, which for a DTM pack for them is the earliest in the year that they've done it as one of the official sims of the DTM. All right, let's move on to Full Send Dead End. This is where we discuss, where we'll put across opinion and we either agree or disagree with it. Full Send is agree, Dead End is disagree. Just bring this one upon John now. Is the Gran Turismo survey more about Gran Turismo 8 than Gran Turismo 7, John?
Full send.
I'm going to say full send. The context here, and we've got an article on the Traxion website. I was sent a survey along with several other Gran Turismo 7 players via email from Sony saying, "Hey, we want to know more about your experience." The vast majority about certain game modes, if you thought they were fun or not. So you could rate them not fun at all, really fun. How much you've done, like how many cars you've collected. How do you think the number of license tests are good or bad? What did you think to the cafe menu book system? There's a lot of progression-based things. There are some multiplayer questions in there as well, but mostly not that. Circuit experience, for example, are there too many, too few? Do you enjoy them? And my opinion was, well, you can't change. If you get a load of feedback about cafe menu books, which is the main spine of the single-player progression, for those who don't know, I can't explain it now. It's weird and
inexplicable. It is inexplicable. It's not chill like a cafe.
No. It's a bit odd. If you get a lot of negative feedback, or people want to say change on that, I don't think you can change that fundamentally for Gran Turismo 7. Therefore, that's why I think this is more about whatever's coming in the future.
I actually, as soon as I said full send, I kind of almost backtracked. I think maybe Dead End, because really, is this not for GT9? Like, surely GTA.
Oh, you think?
Surely, Tom, if they're going to ask questions about how, what people's opinions are on the base skeleton structure of Gran Turismo 7, surely if it was going to affect Gran Turismo 8, those things would have already have to have been established years ago, right? GTA, if there's going to be a GTA coming soon, I'm sure Polyphony have been working in some form on planning GTA or building some back-end structure. Surely, assuming it's going to happen. If that's the case, then this must actually be for GT9, right? Or for updates of GTA. I just think it's been quite late. Like, ask these questions 2 years ago. So yeah, maybe I'm backtracking, but yeah.
GT9 confirmed.
Definitely not. It's definitely not about GT7 in my opinion.
Yeah, there are definitely some questions though that are just about GT7. I think there's a couple of questions right at the end of like, what do you think? What do you want to see in these monthly updates that they do? I mean, that could still be about the future as well.
Yeah,
but the vast majority, I think, it doesn't mention any other game. Doesn't mention GTA on or 9 in any way, but it's just like, hey, about your experience Gran Turismo 7. Anyway, it just goes to show. I think this is the second time they've done a survey like this as well. That things are happening, which we all sort of presume, but it's getting real now. I think.
Yes, can't wait.
So we'll see. Can't wait. All right. Community questions this week. This is where you ask us a question, as opposed to just like maybe some random comments. You can always ask us these questions via the Traxion Discord, via in the YouTube comments of each podcast episode, or like this person in the Spotify comments of this podcast episode. So please leave them there. It's a long one, so I'll give it a bash. Porsche 987s says, I was playing Wreckfest 2 last night, and I couldn't help but notice how absolutely beautiful it looks, especially the trackside scenery, car models, and also the tyre smoke, car and trackside damage, etc. The grass looks real. The tarmac looks real. The scenery looks real. Question is, Why do games like Assetto Corsa Evo, iRacing, etc., still look cheap and lazy in comparison? Is it because they believe they're focusing on physics and don't need to try in other areas? If Wreckfest can easily do it, why can't they? John.
Oh, thank you for passing that one immediately off to me, giving you a bit of a chance. First of all, it's a great comment. I disagree on the AC Evo thing. I think AC Evo does look really good, but only when you run high graphics. And it's also built on its own proprietary game engine. So there's that sort of thing. So, that's just one aside. iRacing is built on very old tech. The baseline of iRacing fundamentally is old. Now, of course, it's been updated to the point where it might, not a single bit of code might still be there from the original. I don't know. But iRacing has so much new content and laser focus on the physics, as you say, on the laser scans of the tracks. It needs to also perform well, really reliably at 60 FPS for everyone, and it's just a different experience altogether. So that's why I would say the difference is there. But it's an interesting point. I just think that Wreckfest 2 is in early access, but it's a new game. It's built recently with graphics clearly at the forefront, and the damage and stuff is such a big part of Wreckfest. Maybe it is maybe it is concentration on the graphics over the physics, but then the physics in Wreckfest 2 are pretty good for what they are as well. So yeah, I don't know. Wreckfest 2 doesn't run for me like completely smoothly all the time, and I don't know if it would be the same, in terms of racing around circuits and stuff like that. But it's a valid point. Why does Wreckfest 2 look so interesting while these other games seem to just struggle to look decent at times?
Yeah, I think there's something in there, Porsche 987s, because some of the sims are really focused on super serious physics monsters, tire models that take up a lot of resources. So when you're developing a game, it's always a trade-off. Okay, we can have this amazing tire model, but we might lose, I don't know, slightly worse audio or slightly worse graphics, right? Or we can have this incredible damage model, but we can't have X, Y, Z. There's always a compromise. Wreckfest at the minute, Wreckfest 2, has this incredible damage model as well outside of these wonderful graphics. So I think it's an amazing job. The tech beneath it is an evolution of Wreckfest 1. So that's quite old. But the key thing, I think, is its proprietary code. Everything coded for this game is like ground up by Bugbear. Some of these other titles, you might be using like an Unreal Engine, which gives you amazing graphics, but then it can be quite difficult to do VR or triple screens and other compromises. Maybe the tire model can't, you have to balance things. Evo's could look amazing, so I think it depends on your PC, and it needs a lot of optimization. So we'll verdict out on that one. iRacing, again, like what you said, John, it's so old, but iRacing has confirmed has been working for a while and will continue to work on a big upgrade, quote unquote, for its graphics engine. So don't write it off just yet. But it's just, it's age. I mean, the grass, for example. I mean, going back to Le Mans Ultimate, I think outside the car at night, the cars look terrible. It looks really, really bad because it's running on age-old R-Factor stuff, right, for visuals. So I just think it's time, effort, scope of the project, proprietary tech.
But if you also look at like in Wreckfest 2, the interior cameras and stuff like that, I think the cars don't look that sharp. Like the environment around you looks amazing, but when you're actually driving the car and everything's it does feel quite gamey. And I think if you were to then like plop a Wreckfest 2 car into AC Evo, for example, you'd be like, whoa, what's this low-res car I'm driving? Like, there are different areas that these games can focus on. I think Wreckfest 2 is focused on the environment. Also, the Wreckfest 2 isn't based on laser-scanned venues, so you don't have to think about the fidelity of every single bump on the road simulating properly and looking exactly as it does. You can just be like, let's throw some dirt road in here and then make it pretty without having to be accurate. I think that's also something to bear in mind.
True. And just to double down on that with the Evo comparison, that the car detail on Evo is insane. That takes up a lot of resource. In Wreckfest, okay, there's crash damage, but the cars don't have to be fully accurate because they're they don't have all the details because it's like they're like worn down, bent ones. They don't have like lights and stuff. Some of them or all of them. And yeah, right. And that actually is a clever way that means there's less resource has to go into that car in terms of the power of your computer being used to render. Or I don't know, this exact badge on a Porsche. Speaking of Porsches. Yeah, but a really good point, really good question. Thank you very much for that. And keep them coming in. We've actually got some more that came in recently, which we'll cover in recent episodes as well. So please continue to provide comments.
I struggled to answer that question, basically, so it's a good question.
Me too.
I think it's a valid point.
Yeah. It is a valid point. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, we'll finish up this episode with just a couple of comments that John found. Ika Sky says, one day I will disagree with John, but today is not that day, but I doubt it'll be any day soon. I don't know what that was in reference to, but something on the last week's episode.
Good comment finding skills from me there.
Yeah. No, but the main point is also Le Mans Ultimate can't add IMSA until they get safety car working properly. It's a big feature that's missing like safety cars, but also full course yellows. They are absent from the quote-unquote simulation.
And they define IMSA racing. Like IMSA racing, and WEC's going more this direction now, but over the last decade, IMSA racing is survive the first 90% of the race to the green flag at the end. Like that, in Daytona 24, you might as well bin the first 23 hours a lot of the time. So it's very important, and it is just a bigger point about another thing LMU could do to bring it further on the realism thing. But I think that's a massive topic that we've covered maybe a year ago on the channel, on a podcast. Maybe we talk about it again, but full course yellows on LMU, whether they be good or not, is certainly a big topic.
And we'll end with this excellent comment from Nick Kearney. Apologies for the pronunciation there. Last week we talked about the FIA running a new hill climb competition in sim racing alongside its rally efforts and a proposal process for those companies that want to help the FIA run more initiatives like that. And this is one I've not heard of that sounds equally as good. My sim racing club, Full Send Simsport, is working with the FIA's Women in Motorsport programme and Motorsport Australia to run a series of sessions for women and girls to get into sim racing and motorsport. The FIA seems to be taking sim racing seriously as a new grassroots motorsport. Well, this is further validation of what we were saying, that the sim racing part of the FIA seems to be really on the money at the minute.
Yeah, 100%. Great comment from Nick. I believe a regular viewer and commenter on the channel as well. So thank you for leaving this one. And there's a number of layers to this that are great. And absolutely, yes, proof that FIA are doing things. I think it's important that the FIA takes sim racing seriously for a starting point, because it is a new alternative to karting. It's a cheaper alternative for young drivers to learn and also prove their talent, and that can lead to a career in motorsport or even just realize they're interested in it. So I think it's very important that they focus on it, and they have done, so great. And obviously also the importance for getting more women and girls into sim racing and motorsport rather than just consuming it and watching it. There's been a big shift, I think, in the last 10 years of, especially even in my life, like on a local level, so many more women in my life are actually engaging with the likes of Formula One. And it's then, okay, how do you translate that into grassroots motorsport, getting more people in at the entry point? And that involves sim racing, it involves these smaller series, and it involves a pushing from the FIA. So fantastic news on all fronts. Good to hear, Nick. Good work. Keep it up from Full Send Simsport. But yeah, just very, very positive. And hopefully the FIA can continue to invest in these areas.
A great note to end this week's podcast on. Thank you all for listening as ever. Subscribing to the podcast channel, subscribing to the main YouTube channel, following on Spotify, reviewing on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Tom wasn't here this week because he was at a wedding, but he'll be back soon. And even though he's there, he's still writing this week's email newsletter. That's traxion.gg/newsletter to read that every week in your inbox. But that's it for now. Thank you very much.